Myths are born when people try to understand something, but mess up somewhere along the way. We'll be looking at some of the Lethal Company myths and bust or confirm them, while also trying to understand how they came about. Number 1. Saving your gift boxes. First up is the idea of saving gift boxes to open on different planets or further quotas for better things. Upon testing, I actually found out that not only is this true under specific circumstances, but I also figured out how to manipulate the system that determines what comes out of gift boxes. And my friend got the same items when repeating my setups. With Rend being the previous planet you visited, and these presents being in this spot, you will go back to the main menu and reload the save. Now, anywhere you go next, these will be cash registers. I must also mention that there is a problem where if you are at the company and you reload the save, your gift boxes will be empty. I spent a lot of time investigating this, and it could probably be its own video, but that's all you really need to know to make the best use out of it. It also does work differently with spawned versus natural presents, so finding these spots takes a lot of effort. We are calling this myth confirmed. Now we've got what is likely the most widely known myth, the Bracken Room. It was believed by some that the Bracken spawns in this room and potentially even takes the bodies of his prey back here for storage, but it is completely unrelated to the Bracken and looks more like a Backrooms reference, if anything. Backrooms and Bracken Room are fairly similar in sound, and this myth could have been started by a simple mishearing of Backrooms. Bracken spawn from vents just like the rest of the indoor monsters, and they take the bodies to the furthest spot from the main. Myth number 2 is a bust. Myth number 3, the masks. We'll just roll this all into one, because there's a lot about these. The primary one is that masks can somehow do anything to you besides just putting them on. People think the masks can possess a corpse if they are in proximity. People think a mask being in your inventory and you dying will result in you becoming a mimic. People think that if you hold it in your hand long enough, it will automatically attach to your face. Or if you're holding it in your hand and you die somehow, you will become a mimic. All of these are wrong. The only way you can become a mimic with these is to click with it in your hand. Now with the tragedy mask, your chances of that immediately making it get stuck to your face is pretty high. So I imagine people thought that it happened automatically when they just misclicked and they started saying that it was due to the mask doing it on its own. Or maybe they lied intentionally. Who knows? It's been tested pretty thoroughly. I've never had it happen in all my time playing. I've held a mask in my hand for multiple in-game days, and nothing. And here is the sounds masks make on their own. If they're on the ground or in your hand, they can make laughing or crying noises depending on the mask, which can be surprising. Myth 3 is busted. Now for myth number 4. Sandworms, the concept of them trying to head you off, and the advice to retrace your steps. That gets you killed, as you can see there. The best thing to do is to just keep walking forward with a brief sprint to make sure that you are ahead of the sandworm. There is a chance it might be directly in front of you, but it's not all the time, and you kind of just have to leave it to chance there. Just do a little sprint forward for a few seconds to make sure it's behind you if you can. If you get bad luck, it's possible that it'll instantly attack and you'll get a really short timer on the erupt, which will mean you'll kind of instantly die, but you can avoid this for the most part. It's not that hard. They're not very fast. You can really just walk away from them, but don't be too greedy and try to walk away from them with like crazy amounts of weight. You can drop your stuff and get it back later. That one's busted. Myth number 5. Some people think that you can scare away baboon hawks or that they have any reaction at all to yelling at them. They don't. They just walk away from you, even if you walk at them silently. They try to keep a certain distance from targets that they consider to be threats, which include any target that is looking at them. Just by looking at the baboon hawk, you get it all freaked out, and it is adding a threat value to you, and once it reaches certain levels, it gets mad and attacks. I think it's random, so the higher it gets, the higher the random chance of it going into stab mode for, I believe, 8 seconds is how long it will rush you for. It does pretty good damage at 30, and will run at you pretty fast while doing it, so it's pretty dangerous. Though they're not that hard to beat anyway. There is no reaction to sound at all, or light or anything. It's just you looking at it. Everything else is a myth. So this one is also busted. Now for the myth of barricades in your ship with furniture to try to stop specific enemies, namely dogs, from making it into the ship or killing you further into the ship. Now this is partially true. People think it doesn't work. People think it always works. The answer is that it works under very specific circumstances. The source of the noise must not be through whatever furniture you are trying to use to block. If I were to make noise where I am right here, they would just walk through everything. But since the source of the noise, the boombox, is on the other side of the furniture, they don't pass through it, except for the one that got pushed through because I spawned too many dogs. That normally would not happen. Now, I prefer, instead of doing this, to just use a shovel, close the door, and just smack the door until all of them are taken out, because, you know, that's easier. However, in some cases, they might be replaced with giants, so you have to consider if it's worth it. It can really help your teammates make it back without too much trouble, though, especially if you're about to leave, so it's something worth considering. I usually will use the terminal spot in the back corner, as you saw in the previous clip, because that back corner there will make you immune to certain enemies, including the ghost girl. Dogs will generally not accidentally kill you at the fault of your teammates when they aggro dogs, unless they jump behind it and get you killed, which can happen. And if you get in the very back corner of the ship there, mimics will think you're outside and will actually walk out of the ship when they come after you. Now for number 7, but first, have a listen to this. I don't have clips for this, so here's me trying to survive against 100 mimics while I talk about ambient noises and people thinking any noises actually have any impact on anything besides that spawning noise. The sound where it's like hands slapping around in a vent, that is an actual noise that you should pay attention to because it means something is spawning from that vent. I've heard it play continuously for up to a minute before something has actually come out. You never really know how long it's going to take. I've heard people say that there's a vent opening noise because some of the ambient sounds and the paranoia noises or insanity noises are very similar to what a vent opening would sound like, so people made the correlation that a vent must have opened since they heard a sound that was very similar to that. However, none of those noises mean anything. They are just insanity noises. They have a very wide variety, from a girl saying hey, which is not the ghost girl, it's just an ambient noise. There's the old western twang noise, which is my favorite, and there is a baby crying, there's like a school bell ringing, there's wet chip crunching noises, there's a bunch of noises, and all of them mean nothing. So if you hear one, you're fine. The only thing you have to actually watch out for is that noise you heard at the start of this. So I'm going to consider all those busted. None of those noises mean anything. There's no vent opening noise. There's no bracken hunting you noise, which is another myth I've heard. There's no little girl talking to you noise. All of that busted. And I'm dead. Rip me. Number 8, the snare flea letting you go on its own. Now, this is a partial one because it does actually work in single player. True single player. You can't have any teammates that are dead or alive. Not a co-op game. Only single player. Now, I initially released this clip. I don't know if I was the only one to say it, but I probably helped add to the confusion there. So, you know, oops. And, yeah, It does work, just only in single player, where I tested it. Number 9. Some people are confused on if the giant can hear or not, or any enemies can hear besides dogs, which most people know at this point, hopefully. And the answer is no, nothing can hear except dogs. So talk all you want, make noise. You don't have to be quiet. And some people think that the giant can also be avoided by turning off the light switch in the ship. Now, it's not like I've tested that, but I'm fairly sure it doesn't, because they are just very simple. They see a character model and they go after it, and the lights don't affect visibility. It's just a line of sight thing. So it's not going to do anything for you to turn off the lights. So freely talk, freely keep your lights on, do whatever you want, but you should hide behind trees. Number 10. All Ghost Girl and insanity related myths, including the Ghost Girl can be held back if you're in the shower, or taking a shower somehow reduces your insanity, or taking a shower somehow pushes the girl onto haunting somebody else, which would be rooted if it actually worked. All of those are false. The Ghost Girl can only spawn behind you, and she has to have room to do so a decent amount away from you. So just you being in the ship and not having your back to the outside will usually prevent her from spawning. There has been a niche case where I've had her spawn in the ship behind a terminal that I placed in the corner there, because if you're on a terminal where you're facing the other way and you can't see out of the door of the ship, she can't spawn. She doesn't have any room to spawn anywhere. So that is probably why people thought the shower was somehow blocking the girl, because it was, just not for the reason they thought. And they should be on the terminal anyway if they're haunted, because the ghost girl can't kill them as long as it's placed in the right way. So there is no way to modify your insanity other than holding a scrap item worth 150 or more, such as a high-rolled cash register or a bar of gold, as the round is starting. Like as you're landing, you have to have it in your hand, which is a fun little feature that the data miners found out. Other ways of increasing your insanity if you want to be haunted is be the person with the most camera movement in the game at the time, or be the person who has been alone the longest. So the ship guy has a pretty decent chance of being haunted, which is good considering he is immune to the ghost girl for the most part. That's the top 10, but here's a few more. This is a stack of 300 shotguns with the safety off, and this is what you can expect to happen if you leave these lying around your ship. So turn that safety on, or it'll go off on its own. It can happen in your hand or on the ground, but not in your backpack. The apparatus being pulled out also doesn't do anything to monsters, but it does make it dark, and the terminal guy can't do the doors anymore, which kind of sucks. I usually wouldn't take that out on a map like Titan, and I would definitely save it for last. The selling window at the company also is not operated by the bell, but by sound. The bell just happens to make sound, so you can open it by doing whatever you want. You can scream at it, or play horns, or anything you want. That's all I've got for now. Hope you've enjoyed. Have a good one, and here's some more videos if you want to watch what else I've got.